Okay, so hi everyone. I'm Shanze, and I lead the Like-Minded Females Network team at Queen's University. I wanted to start this panel by saying thank you so much for taking the time to be here today at our first official event. I'm really excited. And thanks to our amazing panelists in advance for speaking with us and offering their wisdom and support through all of our unique journeys. So today we'll be focusing on goal setting, and I will attach a 3-page worksheet as a template at the end of the event for setting future goals and reflecting on today. I'm so excited to get started. So without further ado, I'll let my panelists introduce themselves. I'll let Marina go first if she wants to. Oh, you're muted.
I'm so sorry. I was practicing to ensure I wasn't on mute when I started. So good evening, everyone. It's so great to be here with you alongside these incredibly talented and inspiring females on this panel. I want to thank Like-Minded Females Network for inviting me to participate. Thank you so much. A bit about myself. I'm the gift card lead for Walmart Canada, and I've been in this role for 3 years now. I manage all aspects of the gift card experience for our customers, and that includes in-store to digital to B2B. As well as our out-of-store program, which recently launched, and we became the first Walmart international business to roll out this program. So a really exciting initiative for us to complete. I'm also the co-chair of the Walmart Innovation Community for Canada, as well as the member of the Walmart Canada's Women in Retail team, and I'm a certified project manager. And when I'm not working, I love to run, bake, and photography. But most importantly, I love to spend time with my husband and my 3 daughters, Mia, Delilah, and Mabel. Great, I'm glad to be here. Thanks.
Amazing, thank you so much. And we'll let Gunjan go next.
Hello, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm Gunjan Kapil. I'm the Business Relations Manager at the Broadway Subway Project. And I moved to Canada last year at the start of COVID-19. So it has been an interesting ride for me. Prior to that, I worked and lived in Dubai for about 14 years, and I'm born and raised in India. My special reason to be here or to be part of the LMF network is that last year when I was navigating a new continent, a new country, and a new career in Canada, LMF really supported me. I was part of the first mentorship program, and I gained so much value from it that I wanted to pay it forward, and that's why I decided to become a mentor this year, and also, contribute wherever possible. So being on this panel is really my way of paying it forward, and I hope everyone who benefits from this wonderful program does that too. So we'll have a much stronger network of like-minded females.
Thank you so much for being here today. And Ridley and Nicole, you guys go ahead.
Yeah. Well, those are 2 very tough acts to follow. Extremely honored to be on this panel alongside such inspirational women, as Marina mentioned earlier. My name is Rudy Shaw. I'm a Canadian living in Seattle, working as a senior product manager at Amazon. I started out my journey in tech by pursuing a bachelor's in computer science at Harvard through a professor that convinced me that this was my calling, actually, while simultaneously working remotely as a Java developer for IBM to get hands-on experience and really see if this is what I loved doing. And I found out the exact opposite, that being a developer is not my calling. In fact, I found my calling for product and envisioning how people experience products, use products, and utilize their technology. I later went on to join as a consultant at IBM, and most recently, prior to Amazon, worked for Anheuser-Busch InBev as the global manager of user experience, which allowed me to work and live in 4 different countries over the course of 2 years. My career has involved working across multiple countries, cultures, and various different roles, starting at a very young age. And I wouldn't be where I am today without a strong group of mentors or clear goals and thought partners. Thus, I'm really excited to talk to everyone today about goal setting, learn from my fellow panelists, and hopefully learn a little bit more about mentorship and like-minded females as well. Outside of work, I enjoy surfing, hiking, Pilates, skincare, anything skincare. So please any suggestions, drop them in the chat. I would love to hear them. And cooking in COVID. Off to you, Nicole.
Awesome. Wow. So many fierce ladies. Like, I am so inspired just listening to y'all. I'm Nicole. I am based in New York, currently living in Harlem. I kind of just landed in VC by the job description. It was something that really spoke out to me. I started my longest, I guess, career so far has been in health and wellness. When I transitioned out of that industry, I kind of didn't know what to do, and I didn't know if my skills were transferable. It was something that I had to learn and kind of continue to grow and develop on my own. And so I'm kind of glad I landed where I am and could use my voice and leverage my voice as much as possible. Mentoring was something that was somewhat of a savior last year, and joining LMF was just like perfect timing and perfect mentees and just great connections. It was really fantastic. Outside of work, what I like to do when I'm stuck in my apartment with my amazing boyfriend all the time, I eat whatever I can. He cooks, which is why I'm less in that area, and see my family as much as possible. Used to run some bit. Working out has not been my forte during COVID, not gonna lie.
100%. I agree. I would think that, being at home, I'd work out all the time. Not the case.
Not even close.
Okay, so I'll start with some questions for Marina. So can you tell us more about your career journey? How did goal setting play a role in that? I know you mentioned you had several different careers, and we'd love to know kind of how you set those goals to switch those careers and learn from different people.
Yeah, sure. I never knew what I wanted to do, and still to this day, I'm not sure what I'm doing today is really what I've always wanted. But I'm always passionate about what it is that I'm doing. So when I started with CIBC, I joined as a call center agent, and I just, became fully invested in the products that I was servicing. But I knew that that wasn't going to be a long-term thing for me. I wanted to be the best at it, and then I wanted to teach others about it, and then I wanted to move on to something else. I was always inspired by the women leaders that were, leading the call center teams that I was in. I was really inspirational. They had a lot of ideas, a lot of thoughts, which was very different from what I was used to, how I grew up. This was a long time ago, so I might be aging myself. Like, there was no internet, guys. Like, there was nothing back then. Something as simple as online banking didn't exist during this stage. So it was a very different time. But I knew that I was different. I knew that if I wanted to succeed, I had to be really tenacious about what my goals were and what I wanted to do. And all I did was I set really short-term goals. Every month I would say, this month, this is what I'm going to do. I want to achieve this, or I want to learn Word Perfect, as an example. And I would make it my thing. That entire month, I would focus on that objective. If it took a bit longer, it took a bit longer. If it took less, well, then I had a couple of weeks extra to focus on something else. But it was really important for me to focus on something each month to help me to achieve that next level and to take me to that next step. From the call center, I became a trainer, and then I became a business analyst, which I had no experience doing. I didn't really know a whole lot about it, but I was excited and I was very eager to learn more. Like, what is business analysis? Like, what am I learning about? And obviously it's different for every industry and field that you're in, but being passionate about something is very different than wanting to learn about it. When you're passionate, you put your all into it. And I think that's what's really key is, how much do you want to get out of this? And because of that, then you end up discovering more things than someone that is just doing the job in itself. I was in that role for a couple of years, and then I decided I wanted to do something that was a little bit different and outside of my comfort zone. So I spoke with a couple of people and decided that telecommunications was where I wanted to delve into. I became a telecom analyst. I learned about, IVRs, phone systems, voice recognition, you name it, all of this technology, call routing, which allowed me to expand my wealth of knowledge, right? I became, my knowledge became far more diverse than I ever anticipated it would be. And because of that, I was able to take on a role with TELUS Mobility, which we're all familiar with now. But prior to that, it was called ClearNet. And I took the job of a project manager with them, and I had no project management experience, but I wasn't afraid to do it. I knew that I had the right skill sets. I knew I could ask questions. I knew the leadership was there, and I was ready. I was ready to take on that project and really, goal set and really move in the right direction. I hired a team of associates. I believe it was a team of 5, and together we established monthly goals, by continuing with those monthly goals. And it's not something that everyone wants to do, because change is difficult for many people. So you have to be respectful of that as you're going through the process. Because when you have a different goal every month, that means you're changing your mindset, and you have to adapt or adjust to something that, even though you were just doing it for 4 weeks, it's still a mindset shift. So how do you adapt and adjust to that? And I continued with that process. And then what I started to do was I started to include networking as part of my, my tool, or a tool in my kit. What I found was really valuable with networking was that not only was I connecting with individuals outside of the organization, but most importantly, I was connecting with the key people within the organization that would help me to do a better job. So I would know who to connect with in the event something wasn't working. How can I make my job better? How can I do things faster? How do I know who I can reach out to talk to about this project going from A to B and doing it much quicker and more cost effectively? So by applying these types of, little tactics to my everyday, I was able to move to multiple different roles throughout the course of my career comfortably, but with enough excitement to keep me interested and eager to take on those positions.
I 100% agree. I like the point that you made about setting short-term goals and being able to achieve those. So I know that if you were trying to learn new things and transition to new roles, I wanted to know, I guess, how do you deal with if you can't meet a certain short-term goal? How do you deal with the drawbacks there, and how do you overcome those, like your process in that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the way I do it is that I have an idea of the things that I want to learn over the next few months, right? If I don't get it and it's not working for me because I'm not liking it, or it's because it's really challenging and I might need some help, it's going to just take longer. And if I don't like it, I just put it aside. I'll revisit it later. I'm not going to let it hold me back. Not everything is going to work according to plan. So you have to be able to adjust and shift your focus to other things. Sometimes you absolutely cannot, and you have to just keep moving in that direction. And that's when you rely on your network to support you, or your team to get the support that you need to take you to that next level. But if you don't have that, then it's okay to put it aside and start focusing on something else, and then revisit that, that action or goal at a later date, because maybe you've had an aha moment doing something else and realize, oh, geez, this is what I could have done. So don't let one goal that you've set for yourself just, stop everything else that you're doing. That's not the right way to think. Just think positively, put that aside, focus on the next goal, and then revisit that later. And if it's still not the right time, just keep going, just keep moving forward.
100%.
Be kind to yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think a lot of that also has to do with being confident that you can move on from one drawback to the next. And I want to transition to the questions that I have some questions for Gunjan. I would love to know about your experience in setting goals and moving from Dubai to Canada?
Sure. Thanks, Shanzay, and thank you, Marina, for such an enlightening, conversation. Those were really interesting points that you made. So I lived in Dubai for about 14 years, and I was ready to change the scenery. But I would like to bring it that this move from Dubai to Canada was not a direct move. It was via a sabbatical. So after working for about 10, 12 years, I was not even 12 years, about 10 years, I thought that, I would like to spend time, take a year off and travel. But obviously, I don't have an inheritance. So I have to work through that. And I think this was my biggest learning experience as far as goal setting was concerned. So way back in 2013, I decided that I wanted to take a sabbatical for a year, and I planned backward from there. So I said, okay, if so, I broke down that entire sabbatical into many small projects or many small pieces that need to come together. Like for example, how much should be my daily budget? How much should I save? How long will it take for me to save that kind of money? And if I need to save, let's say $100 a month, what can I do to save? Like, should I be giving up my coffee? Should I be like, buying just 2 handbags in a year, or like shopping during sale? So every time when I set a goal as part of that project, my question was, what can I do today that will help me move forward to be able to take that sabbatical in 4 years' time? It was a uh, long planning period simply because it was a major life change event, but I was so committed to it that I made sure that eating outs were limited. I made sure that I met my monthly saving goals. I made sure that I had like a plan for each of the country, like what is a good time to visit that country, what is a good number of weeks to spend in that country, because I don't want to go all the way and rush through it, right? So how do I break my year? So I decided I'll do 4 weeks in US and Canada, 3 weeks in Central America, 5 weeks in Central America, five, sorry, four, ah, uh, so 6 months in 543, that's 12, right? Yeah. So 5 months in South America, 4 months in Central America, and 3 months in North America. So that was my plan. Along the way, I met a very amazing gentleman who was willing to join me, who was willing to quit his job. So we decided to get married. So there was a detour, like Marina said, life happens, things happen. Uh, in any case, we did end up starting the sabbatical in 2019, and then guess what? COVID happened. So 4 years of planning went out of the window. But what I learned from that experience is that there were so many, behavioral changes that this goal setting brought in me. It allowed. I mean, if you asked me 10 years ago that you would be prepared to take a 1 year sabbatical from by quitting a job from your own savings, I would have said maybe that's not me you're talking about. But I made that happen, and I can tell you, I come from a regular middle class family. I have no inheritance, nor did I have like a high paying CEO kind of a job scale, right? I was a manager in a communications team in a regular communications office. So but by breaking each of those goals into smaller, more manageable tasks and asking this question, what can I do today to be able to do this in 3 months time, 4 months time? So how that has translated, like even when I now think of I want to read one book a month, I pick up the book, I see how many pages it has. It has, let's say, 300 pages. That means I need to read 10 pages today to be able to complete the 300 pages by the end of the month. So this is my approach to goal setting, that break it down, plan it backward, and then do whatever it takes to make that happen. And then along the way, if you realize that you enjoy it, put more passion to it. If you think that it's not for you, you don't want to do it now, uh, put it aside, like Marina said, revisit it later. We are growing through each of the phases. So what may excite us now or not excite us now may become meaningful later. So, we can do everything in our lifetime, but not just at the same time, right? So in this current time, do what you think you enjoy, put everything that you want, that you can give it, and just stay committed. I have this saying that don't give up on your dreams because they take time. Time will pass anyway. You know, you will complete that 1 year, that 2 year time. So don't be insincere towards yourself because there is a long time gap to make it happen. And perhaps it's a good antidote to this instant gratification culture that has come up, that we want to do everything today and travel today. Maybe building this sense of goal setting, whatever be your timeline, is a good way to kind of disconnect and resist instant gratification. So yeah, those are my 2 cents.
I 100% agree. I think you put it perfectly. I couldn't have said it better myself. I can only imagine the amount of confidence it took to make such a big move, despite you having traveled around before. How did that contribute to setting those kinds of goals, and what kind of advice would you give in terms of self-confidence and goal setting?
Uh, Definitely. So, you go through this phase. I was not this confident when I started. There was obviously this question: are you sure you want to quit a good job to travel for a year? But then I spent a lot of time introspecting and thinking of what is truly of value to me. So, for example, what is 1 year of our life? If, let's say, very conservatively, we live 50 years, that's only 2% of your life, right? Or if you live 70 years, even lesser. So, I think having this perspective, uh, which came through a lot of introspection and reading, I would say, is and then believing that yes, this is what I truly want for myself, irrespective of the timeline that other people think of, right? That, oh, I'm in my 30s, so I should be married instead of traveling, or I should be having kids instead of doing this, or I should be a director instead of being a manager. All these stereotypes of what people should be doing. So you need to, I think the belief comes, or the confidence comes, when you have thought through your thing, when you and that belief, and when that belief, right, it's not somebody else's dream or vision that you're living. It's coming from your own introspection. That's where the confidence grows out.
I 100% agree. I think confidence comes, yeah, from within yourself and also from the mentors and the people you surround yourself with. And thank you so much for your insight. I think that I speak for all of us when I say that was great. Riddhi, now I have some questions for you. How did mentorship organize your goals and get you to Harvard and Amazon?
Yeah, I think like I said a little bit in my introduction, it takes an army. And I think people often don't see that, right? Looking at the slide, you see, senior manager of gift cards, you see all these fancy titles, and you're like, wow, look at how they did it. And it often seems like an individual journey. It really is not. And I can say for myself, there's an army of people that I can list, and I can't count them on one hand. That's how many they were that got me to where I am today. But I don't see mentorship as a way for you necessarily to get to outcome A or outcome B. It's more like Marina mentioned, a way for you to learn, get a thought partner, get a way for you to really reflect in with yourself, right? Sometimes getting that external perspective, hearing someone else's story will really allow you to refocus yourself and analyze, hey, where am I today and where do I want to go next, right? I think today a lot of youth are focused on the 5-year plan, the 6-year plan, the 10-year plan, right? And a part of it is social media, and a part of it is the culture that we live in that puts a lot of pressure around colleges, jobs, appearance, a number of things. Put that all aside. Start with yourself. Figure out, what do I want to do today? What do I want to do next week? What do I want to do next month, and in the next 6 months, and in the next year? If you start with those increments and then work backwards from that when it comes to mentorship. I have mentors that are range from the age of 9 to 65, and each of them play a very different role in my life, right? And towards very, very different goals. For example, I find it incredible how a 9-year-old can pick something up in 2 seconds with new technology. That's something I want to learn. They keep me hip and in tune with what's coming out every day, right? Versus I leverage people that have walked the path before of perhaps being a product manager or a new product manager in a new space when I joined Amazon, for the specific objective of, how did you step into the role? What were the key things that you needed to learn? And how did you learn those while also getting to know people, picking up your tasks and going through the day-to-day deliverables as we have, or the day-to-day responsibilities? So the key with mentorship is identifying first within yourself, what are your goals? not comparing to anyone else, forgetting about that 5-year, 10-year plan, and finding mentors that can help you to get to those places. And sometimes I've had mentors that after a few conversations, they help me realize, that's not really a goal I'm passionate about. And that's okay as well, right? So in terms of academia, to your point, Harvard, a mentor that I was working for, I was on the track of doing neuroscience. And I recognized I didn't have much of a passion for neurosurgery or neurology beyond stroke because we had a personal family history of stroke in my family. And I kind of stepped back from that. And he said, well, why don't you explore what else you want to do? And I actually took on my first kind of programming project with him. And he was that person that said, yeah, go and apply. What's the worst that can happen? They'll say no. And I still live by that mantra. 1, it takes an army. Reflect within yourself. And 2, the worst thing that can happen is someone's going to say no. That's okay. For lack of simplicity's sake, on to the next, right? There's someone else will say yes, and maybe it was just not meant to be in that moment. I've had mentors that I've reached out to, not heard back from, right? And then a few years later, we meet miraculously and they become mentors, right? So that kind of helped me get to Harvard. I think just having that person believe in me, and then me believing in myself. And then in terms of Amazon, it was actually not mentorship. It was peers of mine, thought partners that had supported me and encouraged me, that, had maybe gone off to other companies and told me about opportunities at Amazon. And it seemed like a culture that met what I wanted to do next in my life. So really, mentorship, like I said, can come from any age, can look in any way. Put the stereotypes aside. And on that note, I think a really important one is make sure you find the right mentor for you, someone you click with, someone you genuinely want to go and have a coffee with. Don't make it transactional.
I 100% agree. I think mentors are so, so important, no matter what phase you're in, whether it's graduating university or having a big career transition or anything. So you, as a woman of color in the corporate world, did workplace politics affect your goals? And if they did, how?
Yeah, I mean, given, I know we have people from all over the world right now, but they know kind of what's been happening in, the recent months and recent years. It still takes the wind out of my step, when I see the inability to recognize and accept differences, right? And being a woman of color is one such difference, right? That isn't accepted still in a lot of environments. But I want us to, think of one positive thing. Look at this panel. It's 4 powerful women, 3 of which are women of color, right? And every individual is, I think, struggling in the political and corporate landscape. What's helped me a lot, right, is finding my own voice and reminding myself consistently that I'm worthy to be in this room, right? And you don't need your worthiness or your respect to come from your peers always. It can come from within yourself. Because if it comes from within yourself, you will have a voice in every conversation, in every meeting, right? Because if you lean into yourself, you will get that inevitably. And also, sometimes you may be in cultures or environments which are not fostering your growth. And it's important to also lean into that and recognize, hey, this is not a culture that works for me. And then reach out to your network and say, hey, I'm in this environment. It doesn't feel right. How'd you move? Or what would you recommend to me? Right? Reach out. And on that note, anyone attending here, feel free to reach out to me if you feel like you are in such a situation, or the other women on this panel. I have felt, uncomfortable or invisible in rooms. I think everyone can relate to that, irrespective of color, race, or ethnicity. It's up to you to make yourself uninvisible. There's a reason you were hired. There's a reason you were invited to that room. So use that. Use your voice. That's what I would recommend.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's a lot about advocating for yourself and being confident in those kinds of situations. Thank you so much for your insight. Nicole, I have a few questions for you as well. So you mentioned you had, sorry?
That was fantastic. I was like, yes, preach, keep going.
Yeah, that was amazing. I agree. So you mentioned you started a career in health and wellness, and then you had that now you work at a venture capital firm. So can you tell us more about that career transition, kind of how you set goals to change your career?
Oh, that's so I started in health and wellness for a fitness company, and leveraging your mental well-being was something that I think many people have to deal with on a day-to-day. And when it comes to figuring out whether or not the space is right for you, can change. And sometimes you're just unaware of what can affect that. So when you realize that an environment is not really meant for you anymore, you have to figure out what that environment is. So for me, when I was trying to figure out what to do next, it kind of became more of, I don't really know where to go. I didn't know if my skills were transferable. I didn't know what I could do. I thought staying in health and wellness was going to be like what my go-to. And then I realized it's exactly it's the same. So maybe that's not great. And I honestly started temping because I was like, I don't know what I want to do. And it wasn't until I found the job description at my current company where they spoke about learning and development and training and being there for me every step of the way, that I was like, this is the culture that I'm always strive to be around. And with that, it was one of those things that they were who they said they were consistently. Like, it's very hard to come across, like, job interviewing is probably some of the worst things to go through in the world. Like, interviewing in general, like, it's awful. Sometimes, like, the recruiter doesn't make you feel good, and it's just not a fun experience. And it's one of the things that really should change about the job workplace. And when someone allows you to be human and be who you are, you're like, that's weird and different. They're treating me like I should be treated, right? And it became something that I was like, even talking to my therapist, it became one of those things I was like, oh, right. Like, I set the goals in terms of like the type of environment I want to be in. And even moving forward, if I'm ever thinking about looking for a new job, we came up with like 3 criteria that I always, whatever the job description would have to be, it would have to line into, like, it has to have a culture that I really stand for. It has to allow for like a development, and also for me to be myself, like fully, completely myself, which can be very hard depending on whoever your background is and your privileges and lack thereof, right? So health and wellness became really important to me, especially through mentoring and having a mentee and speaking about like what your bandwidth is to do for your goals this month, because that is the number one thing I would say over and over. Like, what's your bandwidth this month? Can you do one thing, or can you do 5? Can you do nothing and you just want to chat? Cool, let's do that. That's totally okay.
So I guess in your career in health and wellness, does that kind of help you manage, like, balance your work-life balance in New York City? Everything's so busy all the time.
Oddly enough, no. It was easy. I wish I could say yes. Everyone else came before me. Like, everyone else came before me. My employees, my clients, everyone. And it was because I needed to provide an environment that was welcoming to anyone that walked in and give them this life, right? And this experience, that I didn't treat myself that way, right? So I was giving to other people what I should have been giving to myself consistently, right? I should have seen that that's not really healthy. And it took leaving to see like what that balance was. Work-life balance is huge. People talk about that all the time. And it's one of those things that, like, I really hate that people work to live. It's such a sad concept. And like, finding something that you love, or having a bad day and being able to tell your boss, like, I can't do this. Like, I was talking to someone, networking with someone earlier today, and I was like, on January 6th, like during the Domestic Terrorist Act, like, I could not work. Like, I fully was in tears, stopped answering emails. I was like, I'm done. Like, cool, this is my day. Like, I can't really do this because I couldn't, right? And understanding what your boundaries are and setting boundaries is super important. I didn't do that. I think I knew how to do it for other people really, really well. Time to take vacation. Like, you need to go on a break. Maybe stop doing that. But, it's easier to do it for other people than yourself consistently. It takes a team. Like Rudy's like, I have a therapist, I have a psychiatrist, I am a mentor, and anyone that wants to teach me, I'll take it. I listen to anyone and everyone that's willing to jump on a call with me. Whoever wants to be my support system is, come on, please, come along. But if you volunteer, so something to know is like, if you volunteer in New York for like New York Cares, they tell you like the only difference between you and someone that might be homeless is that you have a support system, right? Someone that's in need. And I think that's such a interesting way of thinking about someone that you believe has less than, and where you like to think about is like, I have this amazing support with my family. I have 4 brothers. I have like a huge family. My mom has 7 siblings, right? Like, I have that support, and that allows me to reach out and be like, I can't do this, or I need help. And saying I need help can be scary, and it's hard to do. It took me a while to do it, but I did it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think setting boundaries is definitely the most difficult part, but the most important part of growing in like every way possible.
Yeah. The job during that interview for the health and wellness, like the first question, that I was there for 7 years, but they were like, can you say no to people? I was like, what? And it was like such a weird thing. I was like, thought it was a trick. I was like, yes. And I realized like, it was like setting boundaries and knowing like, the environment you're creating so people don't walk all over you essentially. But it's still something like saying no is so important. I love saying no.
That was great. Thank you so much. I think that was perfect. I think that's super important in no matter what phase that you're in. I'm going to open the floor up for questions, and and for everyone, feel free to jump in. Sonia asked the first question. How do you slowly distance yourself from toxic friends when you realize they aren't helping you achieve your goals?
Wow, that's a really good question, Sonia. I think, you naturally distance yourself from people or grow out of people in life. And it's important to not feel guilty about that. I think, at many points of my life, there have been friends that, I have stayed in touch with forever versus other friends that I've just had to distance myself with due to, energy, or because of the situation I was personally maybe going through at the time. And you feel this guilt, and it's important not to feel that guilt, because all you're doing is being kind to yourself and giving yourself the nutrients like you do with food, right? To grow, right? And empower yourself and feel good about yourself. So if you feel a particular energy is not great for you, distancing yourself from it is the right thing to do. And it doesn't mean you completely cut off ties with the person. It just means you maybe don't do dinner every Friday night.
I agree. I think toxic friends, it can be hard to identify who they are as well. Who is the one?
I have a suggestion. The easiest, it works for me very well. Like, I always try to listen to my body when I'm around people, to see whether I feel good. Like, just to kind of tune into the cues that I get from my body. Does it make me breathe harder? Does it make my heart beat faster? Do I get like a knot in my stomach? It takes a lot of practice. It won't happen the first day that you try it, but I think over time, when you are in the company of someone, give this an experimental try. See how you feel. Maybe just a heartbeat, just your, like gut feeling. Or also the other thing you can check is, once you are done with that meeting, do you feel tired or do you feel energized? I think that's the cues the body will give you in relation to its, in relation to whether it enjoys. So, you think of your body as an individual or as something outside of you, and try to understand that. I'm not sure if I'm able to explain very well, but this is something
perfect.
that I have.
Yes.
Perfect.
Emotional vampires, or yeah.
That's great. I love that. It's so easy, right?
And I also use this in decision making actually sometimes. Like, I will tell myself, okay, I'm gonna, let's say, jump off that, parachute, or I'm planning to like go skydiving. And then I just sit with that thought and think, does my body feel uncomfortable and edgy? Or do I feel like, okay, yes, I'm looking forward to it. So that kind of gives me a precursory look into something that I want to do it or I don't want to do it. So it works definitely, but maybe it takes some practice.
Yeah,
That's
no,
awesome.
I think there are three things that you think about, right? Your thoughts, your gut feeling, and then how you feel in your heart. So I think those three are the most important in determining what kind of energy you have around yourself. So going off of that, like, I guess I'd love to know how you differentiate between those negative feelings versus the positive ones, because the positive ones, sometimes you also get that same feeling of anxiety, but more excitement. So if anyone has an input on that, I'd love to hear it.
That's my brother used to say, like, when you would break up with someone, you have like nostalgia and you only see like the good memories. And I was like, oh, that is so true. Like, you forget, you're like, should I text them? You think about all like the beachy times. And you're like, that's not how it was at all. It was actually an awful relationship. I think it's like, it's a mixture of things. I think my number one thing overall, no matter what aspect of my life, work, friendship, career, is like my moral core values tend to be the same, right? Like, no matter like the goodness in a few things and what you look for in other people and the environment you're in, and those little factors at your base ground tends to be what keeps you grounded and being like, oh yeah, that's the intention I always want to follow suit. Like when I do intentions or goals for the year, that's what I go back to. Like, is this part of my purpose and like what I want to do and aligned with me? And if it's not, I probably should revisit like quick, because I'm not going to like this for much longer.
Great.
Yeah.
We have another question.
So true.
How do we motivate others, staff or family members, to set goals and achieve them? How do we mentor without overtly being mentored?
That's a really tough one, right? I think my hardest challenge as a mentor is, when someone is doing something different than I've ever experienced, right? Or an experience I haven't gone through. And something I've learned recently is my role as a mentor is much more listening than speaking, which is very ironic considering we've done most of the speaking on this panel, but it's more just letting the mentee or whoever, you're trying to encourage or motivate talk and wait for them to ask you a question, right? Or, asking them questions about how they feel about different kind of options that they are presented towards, because as a mentor, you may not always be the expert in what they're going through, or you may not have gone through what they're going through in that moment. But what they may just need is someone to listen, someone to be a thought partner, and someone to be a cheerleader. I think
Yes.
that really is the piece that we forget. Really, what you need is people in your corner. You don't need them to, get you that next job. You don't need them to get you that next whatever thing might be on your goal list, right? What you really need is someone to listen and say, you can do it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, communication is everything. And it's not just for work, it's your personal life, it's your family life, it's your friendships, it's everything that you come across. It's all about communication. And if something isn't working, then communicate, talk, ask questions. But most importantly, to Reedy's point, is listen. Like, what are they telling you? Do they feel comfortable doing this? Are they uncomfortable? And if they are uncomfortable, it's okay to ask why and figure out how can I help you to how can we help each other to do this? If it's something that they don't want to do on their own because they're unsure, then do it together or do it as a team, so that collectively you can come up with the right plan or the course of action that you want to take. But really, it's all about communication. When there's a breakdown in communication, things don't happen and you don't see any progress being made. So if you want progress, if you want there to be growth, not just like in your results, but growth as a team and how everyone is connecting and communicating, then it's just all about having a really good conversation to kick it off.
Yeah. And I would also like to add a point that what I do as part of the mentorship process generally is, listen to them, definitely let them say what they have to say, but I also try and offer perspectives. So, I start with these, have you considered questions? Like, they are looking at something from a lens of their culture, context, and, their abilities. And then there's another perspective that we bring no matter what, we are different individuals with different contexts, right? So there may be a thought or a perspective that may be different than what they are already doing it. So I start with this question: have you considered looking at it from this way or trying this method? So, while I'm not imposing my perspective, but I'm at least sparking an idea or a thought for them or an angle for them to consider and investigate. Maybe they will investigate and say, okay, it's not worth it or it doesn't work for me, but maybe they do, right? And I think one of the important aspects of mentorship for me is broadening this horizon, broadening this perspective, because we all come with such rich experiences and it's not practical for everybody to have all those experiences. And mentorship brings that, has helped me get that. And that's something I would like to pass on, a cultural perspective.
Yeah. Also, I would like to say, you can never make anyone do something they don't want to do. Like, if anything, bad relationships will ever tell me. But from that is like lead by example. Like generally, like Marie Kondo, when she, like in her book, when she talks about cleaning up, she's like, you can't make other people want to clean up. You just have to do your own journey and clean up, and then hopefully they'll be like, oh, they're doing that, I should probably do something. Like probably with kids is probably the same way, right? Like, I guess I'll do my dish now instead of leaving it in the sink. My mom was like, clutches that, like never leave dishes in the sink. But lead by example. It's such a easy thing, but we tend to forget.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah. Okay, so we have another question. What is some advice you have for us university students as we venture into grad school or the workforce? Any words of wisdom that you wish you knew or were very helpful during that time in your life? Anything you would tell your younger self?
Not to bash the boys, but I'll say no boy is more important than your passion and your dreams.
Yay.
Yes, 1,000,000%.
So true.
That is so true on so many levels. I'm not a mom, but I know we have some moms on the panel. But yes, it's something that, I have been told by, many women that are wiser and very, very inspirational and older than me, something my mom always told me. I think, yes, no boy, is greater than, your goals or ambitions or pushing them aside. But also, I think what I would tell university students that are transitioning either to grad school or the workforce is going back to that, being kind to yourself. I think there's so much pressure that one can put on themselves, and you will choke when you do that. I've done it, right? Where you immediately compare yourselves to everyone else and you're like, oh my God, I need to get to the next level faster, right? Whether you join consulting and you want to go from a consultant to a senior consultant or manager to VP or whatever the next path is, right? I would say go at your own pace, right? And if your pace tells you I want to get there in a year, you can get there in a year. Then don't let anyone outside of you say you can't do it. I think in my career, a lot of people have said, you're too young, you can't do this role. No, until you hear yes, right?
Yeah.
So if you think you can do it, then you can do it, but don't do it just because someone else is doing it.
Yeah. I would also say to be fearless. Ask questions. Don't be afraid. Don't be intimidated, because you know what? You asking the question, you're asking a question for 5 other people in the room that just didn't have the balls to ask the question. So just ask. Like, it's really important that you put yourself out there and feel comfortable knowing that, okay, I was in that meeting and, I don't really know what this means, but why not? Just ask the question, get the information so that you feel 100% confident when you're walking out of there, knowing exactly what you want to do. And there will be times where, you'll be told no, and you might be upset, and that's totally fine. It's okay to be upset about it. But you know what? The next day, pull up your socks, brush your hair, brush your teeth, and just start a new day. There's nothing wrong with that. Everyone gets told no at some point. It's not just you, so don't take it personally. Just figure yourself out and just use that mindset. Be fearless in everything that you do, and you will go places.
Yeah, I failed like a lot. Like, I don't know how many times I want people to hear that, but it's something that will happen, whether it's on a project or hiring someone that you probably shouldn't hire. And it was something I don't think I was really prepared for. Like, I think when I was growing up, like, I never knew that I couldn't do everything because I didn't know what I wanted to be. I was like, just do everything. That's what you're supposed to do if you don't know. And I failed trying to figure out what that is. And I'm still trying to figure out what that is on a day-to-day. And I think for me, the idea, like everyone else just mentioned, what your career path or the image of like this straight line is going to look like is not really so straight, right? Like, my family jokes that like Nicole's gonna be like 50 with a hot young husband and just like living her best life. I'm like, maybe, who knows? That sounds fantastic. So if that's it, I'm 100% down for that. But I do know that I'm probably gonna make less at some point and make more at some point and have different titles and probably continually mess up, but I won't be scared doing it, and I'll take risks. I think taking the risk is really important and saying yes when you can. But honestly, just keep going out there and don't really compare yourself to other people, because the best thing about you, like, there's only one you, so can't change that. And always be your true authentic self all the time. Don't let anyone shame you into being something you're not. Wear your hair curly, be gorgeous, wear no makeup, whatever it's gonna look like, just do it.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
And I will say, don't give up on the magic of possibilities. It may not
Yes.
be what you planned it to be, but it will open a whole new world that you didn't think you could even experience. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you, guys. We have time for one last question. So what are some ways we can break free from our mental blocks and tune out our inner critic?
Okay.
Self-doubt is huge. Oh, go ahead, Gunjan.
No, please, Marina, after you.
Yeah. I think that's something that we all suffer from, like self-doubt or that imposter syndrome, when even like with this panel, at first I thought, I don't know, I don't know if I really deserve to be there or not, but it's like, why not? Why not? I've had an extensive career and I've learned a lot of things, and why wouldn't I want to share that with everyone? And I think what happens is that we're constantly comparing ourselves to everyone's, their film reel, right? And it's like they always look ready and fully prepared, and like they're at their finest when we're not, right? We look at ourselves on a regular basis and we're always critiquing and complaining. But when you meet someone else and they look at you, like it's always with admiration or some form of, or they give you a compliment of some kind, and you don't realize, you don't even know how to accept it. Accept the compliment, accept it, and be true to yourself, and just, embrace what others are saying to you, as opposed to pushing it away and looking for a flaw in you. Because when you're always looking for flaws, it just creates a negativity in you, and then that transfers to everything else that you're doing. So try and remain positive and think positively about things and break things up. We've talked about this already on the panel. Break things down into little pieces that makes them doable and achievable, so that you get a bunch of little wins along the way, as opposed to taking giant leaps that you may not be able to.
Yeah, I'd like to add that, hang out with people who are not of your age, not of your color, not of your education, people who are in a totally different context that as you are. It will open your mind to a world that is beyond your context. And I would say read and travel and, see the world out there. It really, I know this is COVID right now and travel is not really allowed, but maybe just go around the park, see a city from a different lens, rewire your brain to accept stimulus from things that you don't put yourself or situations that you don't put yourself into, and learn to become comfortable in discomfort. It's only at the edge of your comfort zone is where you will find true growth. So try to do things that you've never done before, at least one thing, and slowly and steadily you will have done many things that you've never done before.
Completely agree. That's something like I still work on this. This is like one of my areas I talk with my therapist all the time. And for me, my inner thoughts tend to be regulated by images that aren't really what I stand for and like what I want to be, and understanding like the cultural pressure that I put on myself that wasn't really what I really want to do. And so when I started taking risk and doing things I haven't done, like traveling by myself for the first time, I was like, wow, museums are so boring. Like they're just like draining. And I just thought like when you travel, people like go to museums. I'm like, but I don't like that. And it's okay that I don't like that, but I wouldn't have known if I tried it out by myself. And so doing these little things by myself helped me to understand what my true values are. The critic is still there. She's always there, and she doesn't really shut up sometimes. And sometimes when you really need her to, she's really, really, really loud. And it's really hard to quiet her. And that, like, I am a preacher for therapy. I'm a preacher for support. I'm a preacher for whoever you need to speak to help you with that, because trying to do it by yourself can be very difficult, and talking to someone that went through it and knows what they're talking about, or just listening to other people's stories help you. And asking for that help has to be one of the main pivots points, and saying, my voice is too loud. Help me quiet it down. And yeah, like Marina said, like, listen to those people that are saying you're one badass chick, because you probably are a badass chick.
And relieve yourself, I would say, just to add to that, relieve yourself of the pressure to be a certain way, right? I think oftentimes, like to Marina's point, you see people and you're like, wow, they're confident all the time. They're happy all the time. Instagram is the worst thing. Stop looking at Instagram.
Yeah.
No one's life is like Instagram.
No.
At all. I cannot tell you how many days I walk into a room with imposter syndrome where I'm like, oh my God, this meeting is going to go terrible. I'm so not ready for this, even though you've prepped maybe a couple of hours for that meeting, right? Happens to all of us every single day. Look in the mirror, say 3 good things about yourself every morning. Look at yourself from other people's perspectives, whatever works, right? And then talk about it. Be honest about it. Let's just forget Instagram. Forget all the fakeness.
I agree.
Please.
Thank you all so much. I just want to say I myself am feeling more motivated after this panel, and I'm feeling more reassured and calmer as for someone who's graduating. And thank you guys so much for all your time. Out of respect for everyone's time, I'm going to end the panel here. I will release a small poll for those who can stay around. Yes, I'll release a small poll, and I will link a worksheet for the panel in the chat if it works, but first I'll release the poll. Yeah, feel free to answer the poll. I want to thank everyone for their time. I really, really, really enjoyed this panel and really enjoyed listening to everyone's insight, and all your questions are amazing.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you also to the panelists. Like, you guys are so fierce. Can we all be friends?
Yes.
Absolutely. please connect on LinkedIn and any other kind of platform that you can find or that you're on. It was so amazing to share this space with all of you.
Likewise.
Yes.
Ruby, when the borders open, I will come and say hello to you.
Oh,
Yes, please, everyone, when you come to Seattle, please come.